Welcome back, everybody. Sorry for the wind noise, I'm sure there'll be some today. So for those of you who watched the last video, I took the Ural out for its first drive. I noticed a couple of things about it. It was pulling a bit to the right, well, quite a bit now that I think about it. So I had to maintain a continuous leftward pressure on the handlebars to keep it running down the road. It was actually to the point of being a bit annoying, so I know there's issues with how the tires wear also when you do this, but I'm going to make an adjustment to the thing to see if I can't smooth this out a little bit. So here's what we have. So there are a couple of settings on the Sidecar that you can change. If we look around the winch here, you've got two primary bars. Down here in the bottom, you've got this one. So there's one just like it on the back. These two are the ones that set the toe in on the Sidecar. So by loosening these bolts and the ones in the back, I can tip, well, not tip, but I can angle the front of the Sidecar in and out, which will obviously change the track of the Sidecar wheel over here. So from what I can tell, I'm not going to bother setting up the standard bars that they typically use, one across front and rear tires over here, and one across the side of the Sidecar tire over here. I don't care so much about the measurements. I'm sure it's pretty close. The factory put this together like this. My big concern on this one is I know it's towed out a little bit, so I'm going to try to angle it in just 1/8 of an inch or so and then drive it. And we'll keep going like that and see if I can't get it adjusted to where it's not pulling quite so hard. There's another adjustment you can make to these Sidecar bikes, and that's the lean out of the motorcycle. Let's see if I can get to this where you can see it. There we go. Okay, so you have two upper support points, this one here, and then you can see the one up front there, right next to my finger there. So those two set the lean out on the motorcycle. So by lengthening these, by turning this, loosening the jam nut and extending this a little bit, it tips the motorcycle away from the Sidecar. Now that has a couple of nice features to it. Obviously, you want to be mostly upright. The norm is about 3 degrees of lean out. And the way you test your lean out is back here. You put a magnetic angle finder on the rear rotor. And that'll give you a pretty good indicator of what the bike's actually doing, minus any suspension movement that you might have. So in my case, I'm not going to adjust that, or I don't intend to. It feels pretty good to me. It steers left and steers right equally well. From what I've been able to tell, it looks like there are two things that happen if the lean out is set wrong. First, apparently it'll steer in one direction better than the other. My understanding is if it's leaning too far away from the Sidecar, so if it's tipped too much that direction, then it will steer left really nicely and steering right will be difficult. And obviously if it's tipped too vertical or slightly toward the Sidecar, then you'll have the other problem. It'll steer right pretty well, but steering left will be a problem. So times when you might want to consider adjusting the lean out are obviously if you notice that variability in your steering, and I have not noticed that here. Then on top of that, if you always drive the same kind of road, and if that road has a crown on it, let's say the crown is set a little bit closer to the side of the road than most. In that case, what you might find is that the Sidecar rides a little bit high, which will amplify the lean out of the bike. So in that case, if you drive the same road all the time, you may choose to straighten it up a little bit to make it a little more even. Or if you're always off camber the other way, then you might choose to adjust that out also. Now, I intend to be on all kinds of different roads with this, so I have no intention of making that adjustment. Here's the thing though. From what I've been able to gather, and I have not adjusted this bike yet, my understanding, and it makes logical sense, if you adjust one setting, you're going to affect the other. So if I loosen those bolts and tow in the front of the Sidecar just a little bit, what that's going to do is tip the bike a little bit further out, because by not adjusting the lean out setting, those bars are now just a touch too long, or at least in the front they will be. My hope is, because I'm only intending to go about 1/8 of an inch, it's not going to be a problem. But let me get under there and loosen those up, and I'll see if I can show you what I'm going to do next. The other thing I want you to know, obviously we need a way to determine if I'm getting anywhere. So what I've got is this long aluminum pipe here. It's pretty straight, and like I said, I'm not trying to go for factory straight or factory settings. I'm more interested in where do I start and where do I end. So what I'm going to do is take these 2 clamps over here and raise this up just underneath the fender. There we go. So I'm going to put it right there on the wheel and clamp it to the tire, and hopefully that will do what I want it to. I'll then support the front of the bar with something sitting out here, and I should be able to compare my measurements before and after adjustment. So let me get this set up and I'll show you what I've got. Here we go. So I've got all 4 bolts loose. What I'm doing, again, I'm just trying to compare things here. I don't really care that they line up specifically. So you can see my tape measure is lined up with that bolt over there on the rotor, so I'm trying to use that as a reference point. And then over here, there's the black line I drew to make sure that I'm measuring from the same point each time. So here we have my starting measurement, and I would say that's about 45 1/8 from the angle I'm seeing it. So I'm going to see if I can toe this into about 45 and remeasure it from that same position. Well, that didn't work the way I wanted it to. I haven't loosened the bolts too much. I could potentially do more, and definitely if I took the upper supports off, I'm sure that would make it easier to move also. But to try to gain some control over this, I think what I'm going to do is put a ratchet strap over here between the fork and the front bumper and see if I can pull it in that way. Because I think what's happening is there's still enough solidity here that it's not going to let me do what I want it to. So let's give that a try. Okay, there we go. Grab you in a way I can actually show you what's going on here. There we go. All right, so we're getting closer. We're getting closer. I'm going to put one more crank on that strap, and I think that ought to do the trick. Let me show you what I did over here. So I went ahead and wrapped around the outside of the bumper here, just to give me a little extra strap to work with. And in here, I'm hooked around just in front of the fork there. So the one thing I did have to be careful with as I was doing this, as I was tightening this down, it was turning the front tire. So I had to make sure that I realign that when I take my measurement. But yeah, I think we're getting there. So let's put a little more pull on this. There we go. Realign that. Okay, I'm going to take another straight edge and make sure that this is lined up with the rear, and we'll take another measurement. Alright. There we go. We're lined up over there again. Here's my mark. And from the view that I'm looking at, we're right on 45. I know it doesn't look like it from there. There's my angle. So, yeah, I think we got it. The bolts are tight, and the strap is off. So hopefully, this did the trick. Need to take it out and test it real quick and see if it's tracking a little straighter than it used to. I'll let you know. Well, I think we're ready to go. I'll get you guys set up here and we'll take it out on the road, see how it handles. Well, we're closer, that's for sure. I moved it about 1/8 of an inch toe in. I might see if I can reset the angle of the bike just a little bit too. But it's an improvement, but it's still pulling to the right a little bit. Much easier to drive, nowhere near as much effort required. But I think I might try another 1/8 of an inch and see how that goes. So I'll let you know how things turn out, and see you over the next horizon.